Yeah.
All right, start with a couple opening remarks. Wrapping up Saturday's game, devastating loss, heartbreaking in a lot of ways. Very impressed with the way that Kennesaw State finished the game. I thought Jared did a great job of controlling field position for us, put him back on the 1 yard line. They took a 20-play drive. I'm not sure we would have ever really stopped them. They decided to stop themselves and kick the field goal. And, good news was we still had an opportunity, still had a timeout remaining, enough time on the clock, get an explosive play on our first play from scrimmage, and 2 plays later, unfortunately, they take the ball away from us, and that was the game. And so I thought it was a really good college football game, really hard fought. Was impressed with their team and their coaching. Very much a chess match. I thought the quarterback, Ty and I were talking, I think it was less of a chess match between our sideline and their sideline, more of a chess match between our sideline and him. Because even though he did look to the sideline occasionally, most of the time we'd stem, he'd check back. Did a great job of doing what they do, which is to maximize their time of possession and keep the chains moving. And I thought our guys were extremely game, very challenging style to prepare for in a short week. And was pleased with the way our kids competed. But, another coulda, shoulda, woulda, and those are hard to take. And, we'll bounce back and hit the reset button on Sunday, and we've got a tremendous opponent. This next Saturday, traveling to Northern Arizona, playing their senior night. I'm sure that, Case Cookus is probably going to have a little extra in his tank after having to sit and watch on last Saturday in Missoula. More importantly, I think that's going to be a raucous crowd. I think it's going to be, Jerome Sowers is the winningest coach in Big Sky history, been there for 20 years, and they're going to celebrate his last home game. And so I think there'll be a lot of emotion. As I told our team yesterday, that's good. We'll have a great environment to play in down there against a ranked opponent that is right now the number 1 total defense in the Big Sky Conference, number 1 in pass defense, number 2 in scoring defense. Very, very fast and physical, opportunistic. I think they have 15 interceptions, 4 of which have been returned for touchdowns. Their front 7 does a great job of kind of harassing and hitting the quarterback, creates some confusion. I think that leads to a lot of those takeaways. And then, you've got your challenges on offense as well. In Case Cookus, as I said, young man that I think has got NFL arm talent, very, very good player, almost 2,700 yards throwing already. More impressively, probably the 19 touchdowns with only 4 interceptions, so he's very efficient, almost 60% completion, and he throws a lot of explosive plays. They get a lot of explosive plays by throwing the ball down the field. Main target, Elijah Marks, guy's very, very good, and you can tell, especially early in the season, that once number 8 went down, this guy kind of became the dude. He was targeted a lot. I think he has around 120 yards a game in receptions, and so he's a guy that they look to. But he's got a kind of a variety of other guys that he started to develop some chemistry with too. A lot of young receivers in that group, and then he likes his tight ends. They're a good screen team. And then in the backfield, kind of a 1-2 punch with the Corey Young kid who's a Boise State bounce down, explosive runner, puts his foot in the ground. He's got really good speed. And then Joe Logan, who had a really good game against us a year ago here in Bozeman. And so I think they're a very balanced, difficult offense to prepare for in a different way than what we saw against Kennesaw. These guys run a lot of offense. I mean, it's not 11 personnel go up tempo and that's it. They'll get into 3 tight end sets. They'll get into empty. They'll get into, you'll see them under center and I pro. I mean, they run a wide variety of things on offense, and so it's a very good football team. They were obviously on a nice little roll. I think they've won 5 or 6 straight going into the Montana game, and I'm sure that they feel like had they had all their bullets in their gun, that would have been a different result. Is what it is. They're going to have a sour taste in their mouth, and they're going to be excited to play on Saturday, and we'll head down to Flagstaff and see what we can do.
The way that they've kind of circled the wagons around Jerome, I mean, it's a unique situation. With him knowing that he's not coming back, how impressive has it been the way that they've sort of stayed competitive and really making a run at?
Well, you got to remember, this is a team that was picked by the coaches to win the conference a year ago, and had they had Case Cookus, that might have been a different result. And I know they've had him the entire year this year, so I think this is a really good football team. And going into this year, I don't know where the prognosticators had them, but I know they were in the top 3 or 4 teams in the league. And so a very good football team who's been galvanized by a longtime coach. He's had a lot of consistency. There's a lot of continuity on that staff. I know he's lost coaches here and there, but there's a handful of guys that have been with him a long time. And so there's some stability in that program, and certainly he's the steadying hand in that regard. To be able to do this anywhere for 20 years is, I tip my hat. I've been doing this for 23 years, and I've been in 10 places. So, I can't even imagine that. And so obviously the community he's entrenched in that community, in that university, and in the state of Arizona. And so I think it says a lot about the type of coach he is and the job that staff has done.
You mentioned how hard the prep was last week. Is it equally as hard coming out of that style and now going and playing a more typical style?
Well, I think maybe we had more bang for reps against some of this stuff. I think what's challenging about Northern Arizona is really just the variety of things that they do. In the unique way that playing a triple option team, it's so peculiar in terms of modern football. And here you got a little bit of everything now. And so, and on top of that, this is a quarterback that can make all the throws. It's not like you just, hey, he's not going to throw that one. He'll throw the deep out or the deep comeback from the right hash all the way across the field and then throw it on the line. He's a really good player.
Is that what makes him special?
I think his arm talent is what separates him. Just watching him compared to some of the other guys that we play, they're all very good in their own right. But when you have the ability to make all the throws like he does, I think that opens up a lot of the offense.
We've seen the targeting call a lot this year. You just talk about, is it good for the game? Is it preservation of the game, or how do you see this?
Yeah, well, so I think I'm glad you asked that question because I've been thinking about it a lot. And here's how I kind of look at it. I think that what makes it hard for coaches and players is when things are maybe interpreted a little bit differently, which they're going to be, week to week based on the crew, based on the situation, what the emphasis is. And I think it's kind of one of those rules that is still, even though it's not the first year the rule's been here, I think it's one of those rules that's still evolving, if you will. And it's going to take some time to kind of standardize it. And I think it's a good rule. I do. You hate to see a young man lose an opportunity to compete in the game. We had it happen to us a couple weeks ago. I didn't really argue the call, just the way the thing went down in terms of the mechanics of the play. And, I think I've seen the play that involved case last week in Missoula. And, you make the argument that, hey, it might be the right call. But, Tom Brady's probably not getting kicked out of the game there. And on a micro level, we're talking about the same thing. And so I think those are tough calls. And, you got to credit the officials for standing by their call. And they're going to do what they feel like is right in that moment. And, we do have a replay, which can help, hopefully get the call right. But they're bang-bang plays for the most part. And I know that they are emphasizing it more. And we've had conversations with our players about being smart. We have to be smart. We have to be smart around the quarterback. We have to be smart near the sideline. And we have to take the head out of the game for the preservation of the game. And there's some growing pains here. But I think that eventually we'll get through this phase. And everybody will understand that this is how the game needs to be played to preserve it and to maintain the integrity of the game. And so while we can all have an opinion, we're all entitled to an opinion about what's the right call, what's the wrong call. I think that it's just I think we're just working through it right now, both as coaches, as players, and as officials.
How does that maybe affect you? Do you teach technique any differently?
Well, we've tried to coach that a lot. Most of those things happen. It's funny because you lose if you leave your feet. That's when most of them happen. And so running through tackles and keeping our head out of the tackles. Those are the coaching points by and large that we're talking about. Now, cases wasn't that way, but that's another situation where a lot of these do happen. Is in these peel back shots, whether it's on a kick return or a punt return, or as it was there on a reverse. And there's a strike zone in football now, just like there is in baseball, and you got to be cognizant of it. And make sure that you do a good job of pulling off if the kid's defenseless. We teach a rip-by technique now, where we used to just try to erase them. And so you're going to try to just get your body between the ball carrier and the defender, and kind of a rip move as you kind of slide your hips through. And so those are some things that we tried to use as tools to coach out some of those shots that can be devastating. And we've been victim to a couple that haven't gotten called, and it's not that they don't want to call them; they just sometimes don't see them. They're especially hard on kicking plays, and that's where a lot of the most violent hits occur. And so it's really difficult sometimes to see that because you're trying to watch for holding, or you're trying to watch for a block in the back, and you may not see that block on the back side or even on a sniper shot on the front side. And so there's a variety of things that happen, and the officiating is not an easy thing to do. I mean, it's a challenging job, and just like we miss calls as coaches, they're going to miss some calls from time to time too. And I think we've got to just work together as a football community to try to kind of increase a little bit of the consistency in how those rules are interpreted, and work with the officials and our players to try to take those types of hits.
Readjust expectations now. What are the goals now for the last 2 games of the year, with coming in with 4 league wins and having some things in front of you still?
I think it's go 1-0 on Saturday. I think that's what we've got to do, is we've got to focus on a really good football team and in a tough environment. I think there's some similarities to what they do on defense and their style defensively to what we saw against Kennesaw State. And so, there's some things that we did not do well that we can improve upon. And as I told the players, I said the good news is, they're kind of like Kennesaw State in some ways. The bad news is they're kind of like Kennesaw State in some ways. And so we've got to put together a really concise plan and get some rhythm throws for Chris and do a good job of finding our balance again and being consistent. Not having this great drive and then kind of go through these lulls. That's been one of the things that has been a challenge for us on that side of the ball. And then defensively, we talked about it. It's a huge challenge. This team is averaging almost 32 points a game. And, you go watch the Arizona game. They're ripping off runs against those guys and making big plays against them as well. And so, very good football team. And, that's what we got to focus on right now.
Do you have confidence that Chris can find the consistency offensively that you guys need?
I do, yeah. I think some of the responsibility is on us too to find his groove. It's a defense is, as I told Chris, I said one of the things that you got to remember is now there's a body of work out there on you too, and teams have identified things that you do well, and they're going to try to take those things away and force you to do things that they maybe think that you're not quite as efficient at. And so I think that's something that he needs to be aware of too. And when I mentioned that to him, he was kind of like, yeah, you're right. I know what you're talking about now. It seems like I'm getting some of these different looks that maybe I wasn't getting a year ago when there wasn't that body of work out there on him. And so he's got to continually work on the things that he's maybe not as efficient at so that we can take advantage of some of those.
I guess specifically when it comes to terms of his completion percentage, it's kind of gone up and down throughout the season. I know Portland State's a bit of an anomaly because of the wind in that game and that being a factor, but what do you attribute that to, just as kind of his dip up and down, hovering around 50 and then going back?
Well, I think it's been, in this last game in particular, I think it was largely attributed to a lot of the pressure looks that we saw from Kennesaw State. They had some interesting stuff, and it took us a while to kind of hone in on some of the protection, which I think we actually did. In the fourth quarter, we only got one opportunity to really work it. But I think that's probably part of the problem is just having him be in a position where he knows where the pressure's coming from, where his hot is, giving him some tools to say, okay, if you think this is coming, this is the plan, and staying out of drop back mode as much as we can, and get him some more rhythm throws, especially early in the game, is probably important for him. But at the end of the day, Chris's best asset is still his legs. And that can sometimes be a double-edged sword. He wants to get out of the pocket, and he knows, hey, I can pick up X amount of yards by doing this, but there's still plays to be made down the field sometimes. And that's what we've got to find the balance. I think that you'll see his completion percentage go up when we're not in 3rd and 7 plus. I think that's one of the things that we've got to do, is stay out of those 3rd and extra longs. You see how easy it was to convert 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 3, and how hard it was for us at times to convert 3rd and 7 plus.
Denarius has been coaching on game day from upstairs. What's the thinking?
Just be able to see what Chris sees. It's so hard to see coverage looks from the ground level, and you can't stand all the way back and kind of get the vision. So kind of having that bird's eye view and be able to see safety rotation and how corners leverages, what corners leverage is, and then get on the phone with him in between series and say, okay, this is what I saw. Did you see it the same way? Instead of saying, I thought I saw this. Well, now he's got the ability to kind of see that from a really good vantage point.
NAU defensively, do you see anything in the scheme that helps them take the ball away like they do?
I think it's more the pressure that they're putting on the quarterback. I think a lot of times, not unlike what happened with us in the fourth quarter against Idaho State a couple weeks ago, you hit the quarterback a bunch, pretty soon he starts giving the ball away. And that's, I think that their ability to confuse and hit the quarterback leads to a lot of errant throws, and they capitalize on those.
What's your evaluation of their defensive secondary? Seems like those guys have made a lot of progress now to become really good players this year.
NAU?
Yeah, NAU's
I think that's
secondary.
the strength of their
Yeah,
defense. Yeah. I think as good as they are up front, I think that they rely a lot on those guys' ability to play tight coverage and not give you big windows to throw in, and they play with really disciplined eyes, and so you don't see a lot of guys running open in the back end. So definitely been impressed with their back end.
When you look at their coaching staff, how tough do you think it'd be to have to go through the season knowing that there's going to be a lot of uncertainty, for your job, future, and things like that?
Been there, done that, man. Yeah. I know we got let go with 3 games to play when I was at Utah State, And you know what though, I'll say this, sometimes it's liberating. You know, and I think that's what you're seeing a little bit with these guys is what do we got to lose? Let's go let it all hang out. Well, if that call doesn't work, I'm not going to have to answer for it next year. Odds are somebody else is going to have that problem. And so, as strange as it may be, I mean, you know, you go through that period of time where you're like, I don't know what's going to be in store in the future, but I know right now what I've got to do is focus on these players and loving them up and giving them the best chance to win and not worrying about, you know, consequences of whether we go for it on 4th down. You know, let's just go play and let it all hang out and see what happens.
Go ahead.
2-2 away from home. Do you like how you guys handle their business on the road?
I think we've played well on the road. I do. You know, outside of the Washington State game, that was obviously a kind of a early season anomaly. Had a lot of young guys and that type of thing. But I think our focus has been really good. I think we've traveled very well in terms of our kids' ability to kind of, you know, shut out the outside noise and treat every game the same and their preparation. I like our Friday nights. Our kids haven't been, you know, too loose and they haven't been too tight. And so I think we've found a good balance in terms of our preparation on the road.
What do you think about just going to Flagstaff for the first time? I know Ty's been there, but a lot of the rest of the staff first time going to Flag.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
I've been there. So I know it's 7,000 feet above sea level. And like I said, I think it'll be a great environment. I do. I truly believe that place will be packed on Saturday night. And there'll be a lot of really good energy. And so I think that'll make for a great college football environment.
Do you think the elevation plays any role?
I don't really believe that, no. I mean, we're almost 5,000 feet here. It's 2,000 foot. I mean, now, if we're going to, you know, compete in the Olympics there, and the opening ceremonies are 10 days away from the day that we compete, I think you got to get down there for about 30 days and acclimatize. But we're going to be in and out in less than 24 hours. And we train at high altitude anyway. You know, it's not like we're coming from sea level to 7,000 feet. I think that might be a bigger deal.
I think you wouldn't be surprised to know that there aren't any undefeated teams in this league, right? I mean, it's just been that kind of year.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of how it always is. I mean, last year you had 2 undefeated teams and they didn't play each other, so, you know, it's hard to say. I mean, you know, the only team that is in the top 4 in this league that we won't have played, I think, is Southern Utah. And their 1 league loss is to Sac State, is that correct?
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, it's a very, very competitive league. Travel's difficult. It's difficult to, everybody's kind of got playmakers. You know, that's one thing I've been really impressed with this league. You know, the line of scrimmage is probably the biggest difference between the Pac-12 and the SEC and the Big Sky. But there's some really good individual players on the front lines of each team. But everybody's got a receiver, a running back. Many teams have quarterbacks that, you know, scare you. And so somebody has the hot hand on a Saturday afternoon or a Saturday evening, it's anybody's ballgame.